everybody. It is now 5:20. We'll go ahead and start this regularly scheduled meeting of the Temple City Council for July 2nd, 2020. Please rise as Mayor Pro Tem Judy Morales leads us in the invocation, followed by our pledge of allegiance, led by Ms. Stanley Llewellyn, City Secretary.
Join me, please. Father, we come to you to honor you this day and to thank you for our freedom as a nation. We come to acknowledge that you are the only one who can rightly lead and guide our country. We ask that you continue to bless each one that's here and all of those in our community with your wisdom, your love, and your compassion. Lord, we ask and we pray for our nation. We ask that you would give our leaders, our president, our governors, our mayors, our city council, our city staff, and all those involved the wisdom beyond their own understanding and the courage to choose the right path no matter how difficult it may be. Father, sometimes we feel afraid in the tough trials of life. Sometimes the darkness overwhelms us and we grow discouraged as we face the uncertainties of life. Satan wants us to believe and fight our spiritual battles by ourselves, but we know and we remember we are not alone in these battles because of your word is clear. You have commanded us to be strong in our faith and take courage in you, for we know our victory comes from you. Father, we pray for those who have lost loved ones from illness, from coronavirus, and from other illnesses. Please comfort them in their grief and their loss. Cover them with your peace and your presence. We ask that you bless all the first responders, our police, our military, our doctors, our nurses, as they continue to care for those who are hurting and ill. Protect them and bless them. Lord, we ask you to bring an end to the violence and hatred in the world and in our nation. Bring justice to the abused and hope to the hopelessness. Give them and all of us the grace to admit when we are wrong and to seek forgiveness. And give us each the grace to forgive. Let us have the courage to love one another as you love each one of us, no matter the color of our skin. Let us not forget that each one of us is a child of God. Give us compassion and understanding for those who are unlike us. Teach us to listen to those who are truly hurting. And above all, heal the hatred in the world around us by healing first our own hearts. We know that whatever we face, you are our peace and refuge. Father, we thank you. We thank you for all the blessings. Thank you for the provisions, for the protection. And finally, we ask you to bless the United States of America. As a nation founded on Christian values, let us never forget that we must continue to honor you as we celebrate our nation's birthday. We ask this in your precious name, Holy Son's name, Jesus. Amen.
Please join me in a pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you both very much for that. It's very much appreciated. Moving on to the next item, let's take just a second. We have staff changes, we want to be sure and acknowledge. First, I want to say thank you to Stephanie. Where's she hidden? Over there. It's behind the face mask is Stephanie Hedrick, our former interim city secretary. And Stephanie, we want to thank you for your hard work. We know that you stepped in. You really didn't have a lot of experience in the position. You stepped right in and carried the baton, and we thank you for that. We thank you for your hard work and your willingness to step in and take care of that. So, on behalf of the rest of the council members and executive staff, I want to thank you for your hard work. And I think that we have something for you.
We do. Stephanie, you got to come up here.
Thank you so much. I am not happy
do that.
Everybody.
I can't thank you enough for everything you did. Thank you very, very much. I know it's there. It's there. Thank you, Brent.
Well, thank you.
Oh, I didn't want to trip and throw them there.
Is there anything you'd like to say?
Thank y'all for, giving me the guidance and helping me along the way.
You did a great job. Thank you so much for all of that. Very good. Congratulations. I would like to introduce to everyone our new city, not interim, right? Our permanent city secretary comes to us from Robinson, the city of Robinson, and she actually a few years ago made a run through the city of Temple. So if you would please turn around, let everyone see you. We're glad to have you. Thank you. Yeah, thank you. Okay, moving on to item number 3 on your agenda, which is awards and recognitions. This is the designated month for to recognize Parks and Recreation. We have Mike here. Do we have anybody from Parks that?
Mayor, we've asked just for social distancing purposes that we not have staff come up this year, but if you will just read the proclamation, we'd appreciate that.
I'd be happy to do that. The proclamation reads, from the office of the mayor of the city of Temple, whereas Parks and Recreation programs are an integral part of communities throughout this country, including Temple, Texas. Whereas our Parks and Recreation are vitally important to establishing and maintaining the quality of life in our communities, ensuring the health of all citizens, and contributing to the economic and environmental well-being of a community and a region. Whereas Parks and Recreation programs build healthy, active communities that aid in the prevention of chronic disease, provide therapeutic recreation services for those who are mentally and physically disabled, and also improve the mental and emotional health of all citizens. Whereas Parks and Recreation programs increase a community's economic prosperity through increased property values, expansion of the local tax base, increased tourism, and the attraction and retention of businesses and crime reduction. Whereas Parks and Recreation areas are fundamental to the environmental well-being of our community. Whereas Parks and Natural Recreation areas improve our water quality, protect groundwater, prevent flooding, and improve the quality of the air we breathe, provide vegetative buffers to development, and produce habitat for wildlife. Whereas our Parks and Natural Recreation areas ensure the ecological beauty of our community and provide a place for children and adults to connect with nature and recreate outdoors. And whereas the U.S. House of Representatives has designated July as Parks and Recreation Month, and the City of Temple recognizes the benefits derived from parks and natural resources. Therefore, I, Timothy A. Davis, Mayor of the City of Temple, Texas, do hereby proclaim the month of July 2020 as Parks and Recreation Month in the City of Temple, Texas, and I encourage all citizens to get out and enjoy our local parks and recreation areas within the City of Temple. In testimony whereof, I witness my hand in the seal of the City of Temple, Texas on this second day of July 2020. Thank you all very much. I'm disappointed in this time of COVID. Normally the Parks and Recreation Director and I play a public game of Stump the Chump regarding parks, and he's not here, so I had one for him. I was ready. All right, so let's move on to the next agenda item, which is the consent agenda. Is there anyone here wishing to speak regarding the consent agenda item number J tonight? That was the wearing of the city's requirement now to make mask mandatory. Nobody here for that? Okay. So our initial plan was to pull that item for public comment to allow those people that were wishing to speak on the mandatory requirements that the City of Temple was going to put in place. And so we were having a very heated and long-winded discussion in workshop. And then someone reached over Ms. Meyer's shoulder and said, the governor just mandated masks. So that sort of took all the wind out of our sails. So if there's no one here wishing to speak on that item, I will go ahead and move forward with the consent agenda without pulling item J. Looks like everybody's okay with that. All right, very good. And, at this time, we'll consider the consent agenda. All items listed under this section are considered to be routine by the City Council and may be enacted in one motion. If there is any council member wishing to pull an item, please state that. If no council members wish to pull an item, then I will entertain a motion on item number 4, which is items A through M.
I make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
You have a motion by Councilmember Walker, second by Councilmember Morales. Madam Secretary?
Councilmember Long,
Aye.
Councilmember Walker,
Aye.
Councilmember Williams,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Morales,
Aye.
Mayor Davis.
Aye. Item passes. Moving on to the regular agenda, which is the third and final reading to consider adopting an ordinance amending the City Code of Ordinances, Chapter 12, Fire Prevention and Protection.
Mayor, as I mentioned in the work session, this item is primarily on the regular agenda for voting purposes. We would be happy to give you a presentation if you desire, but otherwise, it was placed on the regular agenda for voting.
Very good, thank you. Council members, do we need a presentation? Does anyone have any further comments?
I don't need a presentation, but I do have a comment.
Okay.
And it's more of a clarification from the way this has gone through the process. The first reading, it was tabled at that point in time. Second reading, an amended ordinance passed, not the one that was recommended by staff and the fire chief. And that change was not reducing the maximum ground vibration from 1 inch to 3/4 of an inch, so it stayed at 1 inch. The way that was reported out, it confused some people in the public. I had people contact me and ask me why I voted not to reduce it. Well, my no vote was to reduce it, but it just didn't come out that way because of the amendment. So I just want to clarify that what's before us today, make sure I'm right, is that the vibration from the blast will stay at 1 inch. And so the city staff recommendation is rejected and it stays at 1 inch. So people will understand as they read about it what a vote means. So I just wanted that clarification, okay? Thank you.
Yes, to answer your question, it is remaining at 1 inch, and the current version you are voting on tonight will be 1 inch.
Thank you.
Yes.
So an affirmative vote for this item would be a vote to leave it at 1 inch. No vote would be a vote that may signal that you had a desire to reduce it to some other level.
Very good. Council, any more thoughts or questions on that? All right, very good. There being none, then I'll entertain a motion on item number 5.
Mayor, motion to approve item 5 as previously presented and amended. Second.
We have a motion by Councilmember Long. We have a second by Councilmember Walker. Madam Secretary?
Councilmember Long,
Aye.
Councilmember Walker,
Aye.
Councilmember Williams,
No.
Mayor Pro Tem Morales,
Aye.
Mayor Davis.
No. Moving on to item number 6 is the first reading and a public hearing to consider adopting an ordinance authorizing the voluntary annexation of 102.272 plus or minus acres of land situated in the G.W. Lindsay Survey, abstract number 513, and the J.J. Simmons Survey, abstract number 737, both in Bell County, Texas, generally located west of Orion Drive and approximately 1,200 feet north of the existing terminus of Kleinite Grove Boulevard. Mr. Chambers.
All right, thank you, Mayor and Council. And of course, this is the first of 2 readings, and so second reading is scheduled for July 16th. And just to show you the 102 plus acres that have been requested by the new owner of this property for annexation, you can see a survey showing the boundaries. And then on the right, you can see an aerial showing that this is essentially immediately to the west of the Windmill Farms subdivision and just to the north of the existing Groves of Lakewood Ranch property and subdivision, and very close to the new BISD High School. And so Chapter 43, as you all know, of the Texas Local Government Code does regulate voluntary annexation, and so the property must be contiguous to the municipality. It must be requested through a petition by the property owner, and there must be at least one public hearing. Of course, we'll have a second reading, as I mentioned, because it's an ordinance for our city and requires to. And then in Local Government Code Section 43.905 and 9051, it does require the city to provide written notice regarding any fiscal impact on public entities, and those affected entities are BISD, Belton Independent School District, Morgan's Point Resort Volunteer Fire Department and EMS, and Bell County. And so it's determined that the only impact, and this would be upon development, no zoning case has been submitted or applied for at this time, but upon development, the impact would be on BISD. Actually, reduced impact on the others. And so, as I mentioned, no rezoning has been submitted at this time, but it's anticipated that this would be an expansion of Groves at Lakewood Ranch, same developer, and pursuant to Section 43.0672, the property owner has offered and was offered and has accepted the municipal services agreement, which is a negotiated written agreement per the statute, and that agreement was circulated to all relevant departments and no issues were identified. And so the municipal services that would be available upon annexation include fire, police, EMS, planning and permitting, essentially public parks, future ability to have City of Temple parks within that community, streets, water and wastewater, solid waste, code compliance, and animal services. And staff recommends approval of this voluntary annexation, and be glad to answer any questions.
This item is subject to a public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak on this item may do so. Please step to the podium and state your name and address for the record. And this is, if you're listening in virtually, this is the time to use the raise your hand feature if you'd like to comment on this item. Nothing? All right, very good. Then there being nothing, then I will close this public hearing and honor or request a motion on item number 7.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve item number 6. You said 7,
sorry.
yeah.
Yes.
Item number 6, the voluntary annexation is outlined.
Second.
Very good. We have a motion by Councilmember Long, a second by Councilmember Morales. Madam Secretary?
Councilmember Long,
Aye.
Councilmember Walker,
Aye.
Councilmember Williams,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Morales,
Aye.
Mayor Davis.
Aye.
Mayor, just for the record, the motion was made by Councilmember Williams, but I certainly support it.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's
I was
okay.
still wondering how I missed the number.
That's perfectly okay.
Yeah, my apologies for that. Now, moving on to item 7, is the first reading and a public hearing to consider adopting an ordinance authorizing a conditional use permit with a site plan with waivers for the maximum period of occupancy per resident and a limit on the number of residents on 1.994 acres out of the Moses Shipman Survey, abstract number 782 in Bell County, Texas, located at 6565 Pegasus.
All right. Thank you, Mayor and Council, again. And for this proposed social service shelter, the applicant is Tina Carroll, and she is here if you have any additional questions, and she would be the director of this shelter if approved. And Planning and Zoning Commission approved or recommended approval on June the 1st. And so if you just look at the vicinity map, you can see that it's just west of North General Bruce Drive, along Pegasus, on the east side of Pegasus Drive, towards the northern edge of our city limits boundary. And this would be called Peace of Mind Youth Shelter. And once again, it's a request for a social service shelter by our definitions in the Unified Development Code for temporary residential care and services. And what is proposed is a 24-hour care for children 6 to 17 who are currently in care of CPS due to abuse or neglect. And the applicant desires to house up to 40 children. And so if you look at a zoomed-in aerial, you can see it looks a lot like a residence, and it is. It's an existing single-family home that is currently unoccupied. And of course, this corridor includes mostly commercial uses, but there are some residential uses along Pegasus. And so within our Unified Development Code, we define social service shelter as a facility providing shelter for a period of 30 days or less, and for no more than 10 persons who are receiving therapy or counseling from support staff for one or more of the following purposes: recuperating from addiction, homeless persons, or victims of domestic abuse. And we've underlined the waivers that the applicant has requested and staff is recommending approval of, related to the maximum of 30 days. Ms. Carroll has indicated that it could be anywhere from 2 days and it could be up to 3 months, depending on the need, and so she would like to have that flexibility, and ultimately her license with Texas Department of Health and Human Services would also regulate that. She's requesting up to 40, and so that would require a waiver to our social service definition, which limits it to 10. Good question. And there are also distance requirements that would apply to a social service shelter that we will show you in a second. But before that, let's look at the floor plan, and she has put together a sketch of various the rooms within the building, and per building code, it's a minimum of 70 square feet, and this is specifically for the International Residential Code. All bedrooms require a window. The fire marshal would require a sprinkler system and submittal of a separate fire protection plan during the permitting process. And we would also require scaled architectural floor plans and site plans at permitting if the conditional use permit is approved. And so looking at a sketch site plan, you can see north is to the right here. And so a privacy fence is proposed by Ms. Carroll for screening as well as safety. Paved driveway and parking. The existing building is approximately 3,300 square feet, and the number of parking spaces that would be required are 11. And then once again, the scaled site plan would be required for permit approval. And so looking at some photos, this is a photo of the existing home. This is facing northeast from Pegasus Drive, and this is facing east from Pegasus, and so you can see there's an outbuilding and a existing driveway, and this is a neighbor to the west across from the property at Pegasus. And this is the site looking southeast, so there's the driveway that we talked about before, and you can see what the adjacent uses are to the south of it. And so conditional use permits are regulated by Section 5.3.12 within the Unified Development Code, related to distances, a minimum of 1,000 feet from the following uses. And that includes alcoholic beverage sales, on or off-premise consumption, residential, not only zoning districts, but residential uses, child care, elementary or secondary schools, public or private, and then other transitional, emergency, or social service shelters. And so in this map, you'll see that what is in yellow, that's the one locational criteria that the shelter does not meet, and that's from an existing residential use. Across from the property along Pegasus, we saw a photo of that home, and then to the north along Pegasus as well. So you can see one of them is 470 feet between the structures and 70 feet from the property line, and then 437 feet to the north is a residential property by use. And so in terms of staff's interpretation of compliance with Section 3.5.4, within the Unified Development Code, related to compatibility with neighboring properties, we put partial, since it's the residential distance minimum of 1,000 feet is not met. Whether it impedes normal development, staff does not think it does, so it's compliant. We say it's compliant with safe and convenient movement of traffic along Pegasus, preventing odors, fumes, dust, and vibration. This use certainly shouldn't add significantly to those. Directional lighting, none is proposed, and so we say that's compliant. And then sufficient landscaping and screening. As we mentioned, there would be a privacy fence. There are a number of trees on the site as well. And this is a different kind of use than, say, a truck stop, which we see along the corridor. So in terms of screening from adjacent residences, not as needed as some other uses within the corridor. And so in terms of compliance summary, with the zoning, future land use map, adjacent and anticipated retail and service uses, staff interprets compliance with all of those, and then the distance requirements partial, as we discussed earlier. And so 12 notices were sent out to property owners within 200 feet, and so one from a neighbor was returned in disagreement, and that was across Pegasus, and then we received one from the applicant. And so staff has recommended the following conditions for approval, and that's substantial compliance with the site and floor plans, approval of the following during the permitting process: scaled site and floor plans, verification of utilities, water and septic, a detailed fire safety plan per fire marshal's recommendation that includes a 13R residential sprinkler system, a fire alarm system is connected to the sprinkler system, emergency exit lights, window and escape ladder for each bedroom, for egress safety, posted evacuation routes, and regular fire drills, and then maximum occupancy is determined by the fire marshal. Construction of a privacy fence around the property, as we discussed. Construction of paved parking, as was previously mentioned. Limiting the scope to 24-hour care of children ages 6 to 17 in care of CPS due to abuse or negligence, which is exactly what Ms. Carroll plans on doing. And then also compliance with all state regulations applicable to general residential shelters, the Texas Department of Health and Human Services. And staff recommends approval of the request with all the conditions we just mentioned. Planning and Zoning on June 1st recommended approval per staff recommendation. And also, I wanted to point out, you all may recall that there was a shelter that came before you all several months back on Avenue G. Same shelter, same applicant, but staff recommended against that because it didn't meet really any of the distance requirements, and so we worked with Ms. Carroll to find a location that we could support. And here she is and is before you, and so staff is recommending approval of this shelter at this location. And I'll be happy to answer any questions.
I do have a question. Brian, could you go back to the screen about the conditional, that one, thank you. Somewhere it said about 6 maximum occupancy determined by fire marshal. Are we saying, or is the fire marshal, sir, approving 40 people?
Not necessarily. So 40 is the request, but basically we just wanted to clarify that the number would be determined by the fire marshal, also in coordination with Department of Texas Health and Human Services. Okay. So it would be up to 40, but that number would really need to be confirmed during the permitting process.
Okay, and are these kids going to go? Are they going to stay there totally, or are they going to go out to school?
I'll tell you what, Ms. Carroll, would you mind answering some of those questions if up at the podium? State your name and address for the record, please.
Hi, my name is Tina Carroll, and I represent 6565 Pegasus. And to answer your question as far as the time frame, as far as them attending school, it will be emergency shelter, so it's a short term, so they most likely won't attend local school.
They will not leave. They will not. So will there be any process to continue their education in the building?
Homeschool.
I'm sorry?
Homeschool.
Homeschooling, and who will do that?
Licensed staff that have beat the credentials.
Through the department?
Correct, yes.
Okay.
And you'll have staff living there?
Pardon me?
Staff will be living there on the premises?
I will have staff 24 hours, 3 shifts, run 3 different shifts, yes.
How have you determined a need for this based on this community?
Research. I mean, currently I opened my home just recently because there's so many children in the system, and this is my passion, just making a positive impact on their lives. And I've been doing this for over 13 plus years. And it's a need in Bell County, just alone, over 24,000 kids come in the system on a yearly basis.
I'm sad that we were not able to support you in your original application. I'm so grateful that the planning staff worked with you to find this, but I find this location awfully isolating. Does that bother you at all? Apparently it doesn't, but
it don't bother me. But like all of the other areas that I was looking at, they wouldn't support it. But the location, it's a lot to do because it's a lot of land. The kids can be free. As far as when I say free, just be at peace. They have a playground. My plan is to do a playground for the children, a basketball court, just giving them that peace of mind. Even though it's just a short term until they find a stable home, just keeping them safe.
And what if a home isn't found for them in that short-term period?
Pardon me, I'm sorry.
What if a home isn't found, I'm sorry, what if a home isn't found for them in that short-term period? Do they then stay with you?
Well, normally I have a contract with the state, so basically it would be 90 days or less. So with that being said, they have other facilities like a RTC, as far as a group home that they will go, or, a family member things of that nature, but it would be 90 days.
Okay. Thank you very much. Brian, the one, you had two returns on the, one in agreement which was by the applicant.
Right.
And the disagreement is one of the two residential properties that are rather close by.
That's correct.
Is that person present today?
Not that I'm aware of.
Do you understand or do you know if that person's disagreement is just simply because of location or proximity or something more substantial, or you don't know? Just
I do
disagreement.
not know.
It's okay.
The
Thank
specifics
you.
of it.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you for what you're doing.
Yes.
Any other questions, council? There being no further questions, is there anybody else that would like to speak in the public hearing? Anyone virtually? Nothing virtually? No, sir. Okay. Very good. Then with that, I'll entertain a motion. First, let me close the public hearing, and then I'll entertain a motion on item number 7.
I make a motion for approval.
Second.
You have a motion by Councilmember Morales, second by Councilmember Long. Madam Secretary?
Councilmember Long.
Aye.
Councilmember Walker.
Aye.
Councilmember Williams.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Morales.
Aye.
Mayor Davis.
All right. Congratulations, Ms. Carroll. Best of luck. Thank you for being kind of willing to step in the gap.
Thank you. It's been a long roller coaster ride, but it's well worth it.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on to item number 8, it's the first reading in a public hearing to consider adopting an ordinance authorizing a rezoning from agriculture to CUP for a veterinary clinic to general retail on 4.62 plus or minus acres. Address is 610 Hillyard Road. Mr. Chad.
All right. Thank you again, Mayor. And if this case sounds familiar to you, again, it's because it is. This is the same address for the conditional use permit on this property that you all saw back in December. This is for 610 Hillyard Road, and the applicant is Dr. Suzanne Brown. And Planning and Zoning reviewed this on June 1st as well. And so just a reminder where this property is. You can see that it is just south of Stone Hollow Drive on the west side of Hillyard, or the outer loop. Also not far from Crossroads Park. And if you can see an aerial of the acreage and the existing house that would be converted to a vet clinic. And so just a little background that in April of last year, deed restrictions for this property and others within the corridor that prohibited non-residential development were lifted, and so that opened the door for rezoning for a non-residential use. And the conditional use permit to allow the vet hospital, as I mentioned before, is approved in December of this past year. But since then, Dr. Brown has formed a partnership with 2 other veterinarians, and so the plans and the site plan, which you all approved with that CUP, would change, and certainly the needs. So they would like to be able to expand the building footprint, and so long story short, they would have had to come back for a site plan amendment, but there's also additional property they may want to develop or sell to a developer that is consistent with general retail that we're seeing within the corridor. So that's why she is here, to just rezone, give the ultimate flexibility, rezone to general retail. And so that additional land, there certainly isn't any use that's been identified, but she'd like to have that flexibility for future investment. And so on the right here, you can see this is the site plan that was approved with the conditional use permit back in December. And that includes 6-foot sidewalk, which they would still build, of course, along a major arterial, and privacy fence that you can see here. And once again, they just want more flexibility for building footprint expansion. They have no plans to have outdoor kennels. And so I know that's been a question that has come up, and you all may have that same question. So just to clarify up front. And so here's a photo of the front of the existing house. And this is the neighbor across Hillyard. And this is just looking north along Hillyard. And essentially where the future sidewalk would be located, 6-foot sidewalk. And this is looking south along Hillyard, and also another view of where that sidewalk would be. And so this is the neighboring property to the north and neighboring property to the south. So looking at the future land use plan within our Choices 08 comprehensive plan, that is the current one, but of course we're, as Bren mentioned in the workshop and has been previously mentioned, you all know we're finalizing a new comprehensive plan, which you all will see later this summer. But the current one shows this area as suburban commercial, and that's what's shown in as pink, which general retail is certainly compliant with that. And then the future development plan within the draft comprehensive plan shows this area as corridor mixed use, and so this would comply with that designation as well. And looking at our thoroughfare plan, you can see that the outer loop, or Hillyard, is a major arterial, and so it's certainly an appropriate zoning designation along a major arterial. So in terms of utilities, there's availability for 8-inch water line, a 12-inch sewer line. The property is currently on septic though, but if they wanted to hook into the city's sewer line, then they would have that opportunity to extend that. And so utilities are certainly available. And 6 notices were sent out to property owners within 200 feet. And 3 were returned in agreement and 0 in disagreement. You can see where those properties are, to the west, north, and east. And so staff has interpreted compliance with all 4 categories within the comprehensive plan, and staff recommends approval of the request to general retail, and P&Z did as well at their June 1st meeting with a unanimous 8-0 vote. And happy to answer any questions.
Correctly, this is for small animals?
Small animals, yes ma'am. This is, so no livestock.
Bring it in the 2 extra.
That's correct. So yeah, good question. That scope would not change.
Anything else? All right, then at this time I'll open the public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak on this item may do so. Please step to the podium or raise your hand in the virtual platform, and we'll entertain that now. Nothing on the platform, nothing from the audience. All right, very good. Then I'll close this public hearing and entertain a motion on item number 8.
Mayor, motion to approve item 8 as presented by Mr. Chandler.
Second.
We have a motion by Councilmember Long, second by Councilmember Walker. Madam Secretary?
Councilmember Long,
Aye.
Councilmember Walker.
Aye.
Councilmember Williams.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Morales.
Aye.
Mayor Davis.
Aye.
Mayor Davis, I'm sorry to interrupt. I think that there actually was someone who desired to make a public comment on item 7,
Okay.
on the CUP for the shelter. I would recommend that you reopen the public hearing and allow that comment, because you will be able to consider that input in your second reading. So even though you've already made a motion for the first reading, I would recommend that you allow the comment
Okay.
to go forward. I'm sorry for the glitch.
No, that's fine. So item 8 passes. And now we'll move back to item 7 and reopen the public hearing. And whoever it is that wishes to speak, please do so. We're having a glitch from our glitch.
Is there someone showing?
Alan's in his office, let me ask. The mic was not working. She's gonna be able to, no, we can't hear anything.
Is that something that can be submitted later to the city secretary for consideration?
Yes, sir.
I have them on the line.
Good idea.
This is Larive. It's not letting, it's not. This is Larive, can you hear us? Hold on just a second. What's this? 5239. I'm going to have her call in. I have another comment too, Brent. I don't know why it's not. Hold on just a second.
Is it legal for someone to talk to her on the phone and repeat each thing she says?
I'm going to play my first year attorney, and the virtual we're doing now, to
Sure.
make sure that everyone has an opportunity. So I think it's kind of.
And I would presume that if it was not recounted properly, that they would get back in touch with us and let us know if there was a concern about that.
We'll move on to item number 9.
Mayor, another option would be we could put this item back on the regular agenda and have another public hearing at the July 16th meeting, if that's, I'm sorry, I think that might be best. We could certainly reach out to the citizens that are on the virtual platform and let them know that that's what's going to occur.
Is that going to delay Miss Carroll's application?
No, ma'am, because it still requires a second reading anyways, so it would be on the same time frame. Normally, it would be on the consent agenda for second reading without a public hearing. That's the normal process, but we could certainly put it on the regular agenda and have a second public hearing if that's the council's desire.
So in the meantime, let's move on to item number 9.
For the,
Public comments.
But we're technically,
same
since we're
item?
not able
Yeah,
to
I'm
do
going to
it.
have them call me or call.
I think what we're going to do, Alan, is we're just going to reset the public hearing for the next meeting, July 16th,
Okay.
since we're having technical difficulties.
Thank you.
I think she wanted to speak on the masks also, though.
She's in, at least one of the citizens has indicated a desire to speak on masks.
Oh,
Based on the
masks.
conversation I've heard, Ms. Elder, does she understand that that's no longer a city?
Mayor, I'm sorry, I
centric?
didn't have a conversation with her, that was what she had mentioned to Alan.
Okay, I got you.
Oh, that's what Ellen was saying.
Okay, well, this is fun. I think right now, obviously, I think that whenever we open back up in general, we can, or maybe even next meeting, we can entertain public comments again on the mask issue if that person wants to speak. Ms. Davis, is that correct? Even though it's kind of out of our It's not in our court anymore.
Right, and it wouldn't be on the agenda, most likely, because it's not anything that's up for council action.
Okay.
The reason we were going to allow public comments today is because it was an out-of-the-ordinary circumstance. We normally don't allow public comments on consent agenda items or items that aren't required to have a public hearing.
Okay.
So.
All right, then I think it's appropriate then if we can find out who that was, then let's just communicate with them by letter or email or something, let them know the circumstances.
Yes.
I'm sure they'll be satisfied with that. If not, we can deal with that later.
Okay.
And so we will, we'll now.
And Mayor Davis, before you start on that one, I'd be happy to call the woman back about the shelter. Yes, the woman who had the question. If we can get her contact information and just talk to her about the case. Okay.
So we'll go ahead and move forward then from item 7. We'll put that as a separate agenda item on the 16th. For to allow for public comment or pull it from the consent?
Yes.
We'll work it out.
Yes, sir. We'll put it back on the regular agenda with a second public comment, public hearing rather.
Sure. Okay, very good. All right, then let's move on then to item number 9, which is to consider adopting a resolution pursuant to Chapter 2206, Government Code Section 2206.053, finding that 8 properties situated in the Maximo Marino Survey, abstract number 14, Bell County, Texas, are necessary for the proposed expansion of Avenue C, and authorizing the use of eminent domain to condemn these properties. Ms. Davis.
Yes, Mayor, thank you. We did have this scheduled for some background information that was needed to be given to you in your work session, and we did not get to that, so the consensus was that we would postpone this item to your next regular council meeting on July 16th. So we would need a motion at this time to postpone until July 16th.
Okay, all right, very good. Then at this time, I'll entertain a motion to table item number 9.
I'll make a motion to table number 9.
Second.
We have a motion by Councilmember Morales, a second by Councilmember Williams to table. I never looked at it.
See?
I'm not used to the phone ringing. I'm just super.
It's the mask.
Yeah, I know. We're cranking them out tonight, aren't we?
It's the mask doing it.
By the way, we haven't voted yet, so don't forget that.
I think I'm lightheaded from wearing the mask. So we have not voted to table this item on item number 9. So, Madam Secretary.
Councilmember Long.
Aye.
Councilmember Walker.
Aye.
Councilmember Williams.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Morales.
Aye.
Mayor Davis.
Aye.
Now, Mrs. LaRive is on the phone if you'd like to hear her public comments on the item 7 today, or we can stay the course and
Go ahead.
So if we go ahead and do it today, then based on, are we going to have to re-vote based on?
No.
Okay.
You would have to vote for the second reading on
Okay.
July 16th.
Yeah, that's very, very good. Let's do that.
Brave?
Yes.
Hi, we have you on speakerphone now, so you can go ahead and
Okay, my question is, since she is going to have children between the ages of 6 to 17 on this property, and some of them are from homes of neglect and abuse, what is the protection for those children in that area from the ones who have neglected them and abused them?
That's a very good question. This is Brian Chandler, the presenter and Director of Planning and Development. The applicant would be best equipped to be able to answer that question. Unfortunately, she is not here. But what I can tell you is that it does require a state license for this type of shelter through the Texas Department of Health and Human Services. And so, unfortunately, that's the only answer that I can give you. But I'd be happy to check with Miss Carroll and relay the answer back to you, or you can, we can bring it up at the next meeting on the 16th.
I understand that it's the state that issues a license, but I have a degree, master's degree in psychology, so my concern is the protection of those children while they're in that home, to make sure that there's no chance of them being further damaged by the people who created the damage in the first place.
Sure.
So that would be my concern in that issue. So yes, I would very much appreciate you bringing that up in the next meeting concerning this item.
I think we can probably have Ms. Carroll back at the next meeting to address that question.
Yes, Mayor, I would
What did the
suggest
mayor
that-
say? I'm sorry, I didn't hear him because I have mine turned down.
Sorry, my recommendation was that we have Ms. Carroll back at the next meeting to address that specifically. Ms. Myers, you were going to add a comment?
Staff could follow up on that question with the applicant and provide the response to Ms. Larive as well as to the council prior to the next meeting.
Okay. Is that satisfactory, ma'am?
I'm sorry, I had it turned down and I didn't hear her.
So we can, staff in the meantime can get back in touch with the applicant, get that question answered, and then turn around and get back in touch with you regarding her answer.
That will be very satisfactory. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you for your diligence in getting your question asked.
You're very welcome, Mayor Davis.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay. That was a weird ending to a weird meeting. But thank you all for attending tonight's meeting. And it is now 6:15, and this meeting is adjourned.
Oh, I had no doubt. I had no doubt.
To the citizens that are here, wearing a mask.
I think the city secretary needs to get all the trouble.
Yeah.